Hello and welcome to Protect Ukraine Now YouTube channel. I would like to continue the discussion over the so-called 28-point peace plan that sparked rallies and a lot of comments on Facebook posts that I've made and perhaps others too. And from what I see, the Ukrainian diaspora is divided over whether to accept this particular plan or continue fighting, reject the plan. And I'd like to discuss the both sides of this argument. Again, based on what I see is there, to put it in simple terms, there are two groups: those who are outraged at this, no questions, lousy peace deal, and they call to reject it, and those who view this deal as an opportunity to end the war, and they accuse the first group in continuing the war at expense of people at the front, people in Ukraine. And again, this is a divide inside Ukrainian diaspora that I want to talk about. And first, those of you guys, and again, you know who I'm talking about. You were making various comments on my timeline on Facebook, and I have a question for you. Are you sure that Putin is going to accept the plan as it was supposedly leaked from Russia? My position is that this plan, at its worst state, obviously there are conversations happening right now, and this plan supposedly getting better. But do you think that even at its initial state, Putin would accept it? My position is he will not. He specifically leaked this plan into media so that diaspora argue about it. It is done to demoralize people in Ukraine. It is done to divide the diaspora. This is exactly what's happening right now, and Putin is a clear beneficiary of this argument. Let me also just one more time mention my position, my personal position on support for Ukraine. This is not my job, or this. I don't have a moral right to tell Ukraine whether or not they should continue the fight or they should surrender to Putin's demands. This is not my moral right to do so. I'm not in Ukraine, and my children are not on the front. I'm not on the front myself. But I have this belief that as long as the war goes on, as long as there are Ukraine defenders on the front line risking their lives, not just risking, they're dying every day. My job, my responsibility is to make sure they are equipped to do this job, this very difficult, very demanding work. And for that, they need weapons. They need weapons to protect themselves. They need weapons to protect their homeland. I also understand where people who want to end this war at any cost come from. And we are getting to a point when everyone gets to understand something um, my team and I were talking about for the longest time. Specifically, Ukraine cannot fight this war forever. The window of opportunity to help Ukraine has its limits. And right now, we are approaching the end of this opportunity to help Ukraine survive as a country. What is obvious is suffering inside Ukraine, losses on the front line, and other issues inside Ukraine and among those who support Ukraine that collectively together uh, result in the very unfortunate state of things on the front line. And yes, there are people who recognize that and they call for any peace. The problem is that any peace is not possible. What's possible is capitulation to Putin's demand. If Ukraine is going to capitulate and surrender to the territories Putin originally demanded, if Ukraine is going to disarm and sign all other demands, like, for example, acknowledge, sign that they will never join any unions, like NATO, for example. Yeah, Putin will end this war, sure. Mm. And I think it's worthwhile to also talk about how we got to this state. Now, this this situation is a direct result of a drip drop Biden's policy that is also known as for as long as it takes. For as long as it takes what? All right. For as long as it takes Ukraine to work down Russian ability to wage wars or aggression on other countries in Europe. So uh, Ukrainians are obviously taking Russian resources. They diminish their ability to some degree to wage wars at other countries in Europe, and that's what Europeans right now trying to do. They provide Ukraine with very limited resources, namely weapons, to fight this war. What Europeans don't realize is Russia is getting better at aggression. They are improving on their unmanned aircraft technologies. And while a lot of them have perished in this war, those who have survived are now far more dangerous, not only to Ukraine, but also to Europe. So this is where huge mistake is being made. Again, the front line is held by the defenders of Ukraine, and of course there's a lot of assistance coming from the private sector, and that's is being done also in attempt to fill in a huge gap left by the Ukrainian government. Ukrainian government did not do enough to produce weapons that Ukraine needs today, so it continues to be heavily reliant on the support from the outside. So again, Ukraine cannot fight this war forever. And there's a need for a fundamental change to how the aid is administered to Ukraine. I'm not sure, we haven't reached the point of no return. It could be too late, I don't know. But if those of us who are still interested in helping Ukraine remain a country, we need to be advocating for a fundamental change to how Ukraine aid is provided. How do I know that the European countries and United States were never serious about supporting Ukraine militarily. Look at this chart. Over here, I listed all humanitarian and security issues that Europe and the United States combined were involved in lately. And well, money speaks for itself. As you can see, we have spent over 7 trillion or around $7 trillion on COVID. We have spent $800 billion on various energy subsidies. We spent $450 billion on climate change and even refugee support. So those Ukrainians that left the country and they needed support in Europe and United States, mostly Europe though, they were given $130 billion in support. And then comes the weapons, actual weapons delivered to Ukraine, not commitments made, not allocations, actual weapons that are in Ukraine and can be used for defense of the country. That's only $95 billion. 1.1% of other expenditures. That's how the priority is been viewed by the leaders in Europe and United States. 1.1% of all expenses related to global security, humanitarian issues, everything that we supposedly deeply care about. So again, this chart speaks about priorities, and unless we change how the weapons for Ukraine are being viewed, this Ukraine is going to lose this war with all the consequences for the free world. Now, I want to say a few words to my friends at Ukrainian Diaspora for what soon is going to be 4 years. We have attended together meetings in Congress, rallies, and so many other events in support of Ukraine. I deeply admire your work and everything you have done to help Ukraine. But there's a problem with the message we continue to broadcast, and I've been very vocal about it. You know that I talk to each and every one of you about the need to advocate for weapons for Ukraine above everything else. The problem with messages and posters and everything else that is being broadcasted is it lacks clarity and it lacks the actionable portion. Ukraine is not for sale, or appeasement is not peace. What does it mean? What exactly has to happen next? USA support Ukraine. What does it mean? It's great, but how do we support Ukraine? What Ukraine actually need at this point? What does it need? Do not negotiate with terrorists. Okay, consider it done, because clearly Russia is not negotiating with us. Putin's demands are consistent, and they are the same as they have been for the duration of this war. They haven't changed, so he is not negotiating. No negotiations are taking place. But here's another problem. Here's another big problem with vague and not actionable messages. This encourages a similar response from the politicians that we are expecting actions from. Let me show you some examples. And I'll read some tweets from representatives and senators who support Ukraine. They support Ukraine without any questions. We've met with those guys and their assistants, their staff, many times. Representative Brian Fitzpatrick. The following facts must be emphasized when assessing any proposed peace agreement. Vladimir Putin has never once kept a single promise that he has made regarding Ukraine. Not once, ever. And he is not about to start now. Any agreement that requires any element of trust placed and so on. Right? So end of quote. Okay, so Putin never kept a single promise. Great. How do we make him keep a promise? What do we do about it? As you can see, there's no action in this message. Representatives Darren Soto. Russia just wrote America's peace plan for Ukraine? Question marks, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Congress should reject this embarrassing farce. We have seen for years that Trump is in bed with the Russians. End of quote. Okay, so sure, we can accuse President Trump. We can ask Congress to reject this embarrassing farce. Okay, but what's next? If Ukraine is going to reject this plan, the plan, by the way, that Russia is not going to sign anyway, the war is going to continue. How Ukraine is going to continue this war if we're not enabling them to be effective at the front line? Where's the action part? It's missing. Senator Blumenthal. As repugnant as the 28-point Trump plan, stomach turning is the time ultimatum. A Thanksgiving dagger pointed at Ukraine's heart. Appeasing Putin will haunt Trump and all his henchmen, making them history pariahs like Neville Chamberlain. Okay, end of quote. I agree. I agree that we are appeasing the aggressor. This is outrageous. Question is, what's next? How do we make sure that Ukraine is able to reject this appeasement and continue on? Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham. The proposed Russia-Ukraine peace deal provides an opportunity to end the war honorably and justly. Congress should also have the ability to review a plan that includes any future security guarantees, just like we have the ability to review any Iran nuclear agreement. That's great, but end of quote. Yes, end of quote. Where is that plan? Is there a plan that we can put in front of the Congress and ask them to follow through? I don't think so. I can continue on for a very long time, but I think you're getting the point. Every congressman that supports Ukraine had something to say about how this peace plan is unacceptable. That's amazing. What do we do to continue this momentum in Ukraine? How do we make sure Ukraine is able to fight this war effectively, losing as little as possible of their best men and women? So I really hope by now you see what's going on here. The diaspora is broadcasting a very vague, unspecific message. The Congress is responding with the same unspecific, unactionable response. And that creates an echo chamber where one group feeds the other, and both are apparently happy. The Congress believes they are responding to their constituent ask. The constituents, the diaspora, believe the Congress is standing with Ukraine. They believe, or we believe, that Congress is actually doing everything they can to help Ukraine, which is as far as it can be from the reality. This is not what Ukraine needs. This is not what Congress can deliver. Congress can do far more, and we need to broadcast that specific requirement to our elected officials. Our congressmen and senators need to clearly see what we're asking. And when we dilute that message by everything else that is not actionable, that takes attention away from our elected officials and from the people that supposed to be standing with Ukraine. After a while, people are disillusional, people are unhappy, people upset, and they believe at the very end that the Congress is not helping them. There's nothing they can or want to do to help their constituent. But guess what? You didn't ask that specific thing to begin with. I like to encourage you to reach out to your congressmen and senators with something actionable. And actionable items are the following. Arm Ukraine to the teeth. Ukraine needs aviation. Ukraine needs air defense. Ukraine needs investment into drone production. Drones that hold the front line, drones that are the new face of this war, and drones that unfortunately Russia is producing at very rapid pace. Russia is over resourced. Ukraine is underfunded and undersupplied. So this has to change. What needs to happen is Ukraine needs an influx of money to pay for this for these needs, money to pay for air defense, money to pay for jets, money to pay for drones. And at this point, it looks like $100 to $150 billion in influx of funds are necessary. That money can be spent in the United States. It can be spent in Europe. When it comes to production of drones, it needs to be spent in Ukraine because that's where that production takes place. The point is, Ukraine needs a fundamental change. The time is running out. The window of opportunity to help Ukraine is closing. If we do not make this fundamental change right now, Ukraine has 4, 6, maybe 8 months, maybe a year, but the front line is going to collapse. We cannot expect that continuing the same failing strategy is going to get us any better results that we have seen for the past 4 years. I welcome your comments. I welcome you reaching out back to me. You know how to find me. I'm open to ideas. I'm open to conversation. I call on you to step up because if we don't act right now, there'll be no Ukraine to protect.